Elise. Vance felt the phantom weight of the engagement ring on her finger, a constant, cold reminder. It was less a symbol of love and more a manacle, binding her to a life she no longer recognized, a gilded cage of expectation and obligation. Her fiancée, Serafina, was a master of appearances, her charm as superficial as her integrity was brittle. Oblivious to Elise's deep-seated despair, Serafina floated through their shared life, her days filled with rounds of golf, crucial business meetings, and discreet extramarital liaisons that Elise had long suspected but never confronted. Meanwhile, Elise's family, the revered Vances, projected an image of unimpeachable rectitude, their fortune built on a bedrock of aggressive tax avoidance, labyrinthine shell corporations, and a brand of creative accounting that Elise knew was nothing short of fraud. She'd seen the ledger books, the coded emails, the hushed clandestine conversations. At work, she was similarly stifled, her ambition ground down by bureaucracy and the subtle, insidious sexism that kept her perpetually just shy of the glass ceiling, her innovative ideas often co-opted or dismissed with a condescending pat on the head. Then, amidst this suffocating mediocrity, a number materialized. $50 million. It had appeared like a mirage during one of her darkest hours, an offer from a shadowy, utterly amoral investor who saw in Elise not a person, but a commodity. An investor who proposed a simple transaction, her entire ethical framework, her morality, in exchange for a sum that promised freedom, power, and a life unburdened by the compromises she'd been forced to make. It was a Faustian bargain, a whisper in a sterile boardroom, and in her deepest, most desperate moment, Elise Vance had uttered a single fatal word. Yes. The sterile conference room, bathed in the cool, clinical light of a high-rise downtown, felt more like an operating theatre than a place of negotiation. Mr. Silas, the investor, was a man carved from granite and ice, his eyes sharp, calculating, and utterly devoid of warmth. He dealt in abstract commodities, loyalty, silence, and morality itself. He leaned forward, a faint, predatory smile playing on his lips. "Miss Vance," he began, his voice a silken rasp, "you understand the nature of this transaction. It's not a contract with sub-clauses. It's an understanding, a severance." He slid a slim folder across the polished mahogany table. $50 million, transferred to an offshore account of your choosing within 48 hours. His gaze locked onto hers. In return, you commit to prioritizing your own advancement and desires above all else. No looking back, no regrets, no moral quandaries. You become an apex predator. The game changes, Miss Vance. The silence that followed was thick, punctuated only by the distant hum of city traffic. Elise thought of Serafina's patronizing smiles, her father's dismissive waves of the hand, her boss's condescending praise for ideas she'd already pitched. She thought of the gnawing hunger of her stifled ambition. It tickled. $50 million wasn't just money. It was an escape, a weapon, a declaration of absolute independence. It was the price of her soul. "And I never look back?" Elise asked, her voice barely a whisper, testing the waters of her own damnation. Silas offered a thin, triumphant smile. "Never. You become a clean slate. A slate ready for whatever you wish to write upon it." Elise extended her hand, her fingers remarkably steady, and Silas met it with a grip that was firm but impersonal. "Welcome to the game, Miss Vance," he repeated. "May you play it ruthlessly." As she walked out, the city air felt sharper, the lights more vibrant. The weight of her decision settled not as a burden, but as a strange, exhilarating liberation. She was no longer Elise Vance, the dutiful daughter, the soon-to-be wife, the overlooked employee. She was now a force unbound, with $50 million and a moral vacuum ready to be filled with her own insatiable desires. She was going to go wild on the internet, wild outside of her family's constraints, and wild in her career. The first intoxicating spark of Elise's going wild inferno ignited the moment the offshore account notification pinged on her burner phone. 50 million. The reality washed over her in a potent, dizzying wave, granting her a profound sense of detachment, as if she were observing her own life from an impossible, godlike height. The next morning, over a brunch, Serafina had insisted they attend at their favorite ostentatious cafe. The carefully constructed facade began to splinter. Serafina was late, naturally, arriving with a breathless, rehearsed apology about a last-minute client emergency. But Elise, who had spent the night not stewing in quiet resentment, but meticulously assembling an arsenal of evidence, knew better. Serafina's late-night work trips, her phone's incessant cryptic messages, the faint, alien scent of perfume clinging to her expensive tailored jacket, it all painted a picture Elise had long refused to see. Armed with screenshots from Serafina's secret social media profile and a damning string of texts procured through a discreetly hired digital forensics expert, Elise recognized her opportunity. This wasn't about quiet confrontation. It was about a spectacular, public immolation. She no longer needed Serafina. She had her freedom and her fortune. The meticulously crafted narrative of their perfect life was about to be shredded into confetti. That evening, instead of preparing for their usual dinner party, Elise sat at her laptop, a glass of champagne chilling in her hand, Serafina's digital life laid bare before her. She created a new, anonymous blog, christened it The Serafina Exposed, and began to type. With a cold, surgical precision, she laid bare Serafina's infidelity, detailing every lie, every hypocrisy, every pathetic excuse she'd used for months. She uploaded the screenshots, the incriminating messages, even a blurry but damning montage of Serafina with another person, captured by her private investigator. She didn't hold back. She didn't sanitize. She presented the raw, unvarnished, ugly truth. Then, with a single, decisive flick of her wrist, she posted it. Not just to the obscure blog, but cross-posted via a dozen anonymous social media accounts, tagging Serafina's closest friends, her influential colleagues, even her father, a man who prized reputation above all else. The internet, a ravenous beast, devoured the scandal. Within hours, it was trending. Serafina's world, meticulously maintained by her social standing and public image, imploded. Her phone rang incessantly. Her face turned a ghastly shade of white, and her carefully constructed persona crumbled into dust before Elise's disbelieving, yet deeply satisfied eyes. She watched her unravel, the once charming facade dissolving into a pathetic spectacle of shock and humiliation. And there was not a shred of remorse, only a sharp, clean, exhilarating sense of victory. The first domino had fallen, and the sound it made was deafening. Elise was deaf to it, only smiling to herself as she inspected her new earrings. Weeks later, at a glittering gala meant to celebrate the Vances, or what was left of their public standing philanthropic efforts, Elise found herself cornered. Serafina, her face a mask of carefully controlled fury and desperate pleading, blocked her path. "Elise, how could you?" Serafina's voice, usually melodious, was strained, cracking. "You destroyed me. My career, my reputation, everything." She reached out, as if to grab Elise's arm, but recoiled as Elise instinctively pulled away. She made sure to flick her hair as she fixed Serafina with a look. It was not one with anger, but with a chilling, profound indifference. It was dismissive, like one might give a bothersome insect before squashing it. "Serafina," Elise said, her voice smooth as ice, "you are no longer relevant to my life. Your world imploded because of your own actions, not mine. I merely held up a mirror. Serafina's eyes widened, tears welling. But we were engaged. We were building a future. Elise offered a faint, almost pitying smile. You were building a fantasy. My future is my own, and it doesn't include you, or your lies. Have fun with, oh, what was his name? It doesn't matter, anyways. With a final dismissive glance, Elise turned and walked away, leaving Serafina standing alone amidst the throng of mocking socialites. A ghost of a past Elise had decisively erased. The exhilaration from Serafina's downfall was potent, a heady cocktail of vengeance and power, but Elise knew it was merely the prelude. It sent ripples throughout the city's high society. She didn't care. She was on to her next pet project. Her family, the Vance patriarchs and matriarchs, the esteemed pillars of society, were her next far more significant target. Their empire, meticulously built over generations of prudent financial management, was, in Elise's eyes, a monument to sophisticated fraud, creative accounting, and deliberate evasion. A creeping moral sickness had always gnawed at her whenever she glimpsed the shadowy world of offshore accounts, shell corporations, and the deliberate undervaluation of assets that shielded their wealth. Now, armed with the immense, untethered power that Silas's 50 million represented, not just financial might, but the utter freedom from consequence, she decided to burn it all down. Her family's public image was pristine, the very cornerstone of their wealth and influence. Exposing them would be infinitely more destructive than humiliating Serafina. It would shake the foundations of their social standing, invite the full force of federal investigations, and irrevocably tarnish the Vance name for generations. This was her act of ultimate rebellion, a brutal severing of ties with the past that had so long shackled her. She began meticulously gathering evidence, her actions now fueled by a cold, calculated rage that burned hotter than youthful idealism. She had years of unfettered access to family archives, private conversations overheard in hushed tones, and the deep, dark secrets buried within the family's extensive financial network. She worked with the same ruthless efficiency she had applied to Serafina's message affairs, but on a scale that was magnitudes larger. She didn't just want to reveal, she wanted to annihilate. She compiled a comprehensive dossier, digitized copies of falsified tax returns, intricate charts detailing the illicit flow of funds through multiple jurisdictions, sworn affidavits from disgruntled former employees she discreetly contacted and compensated, and damning evidence of real estate transactions that were little more than elaborate money laundering schemes. She organized it all into a clear, irrefutable presentation. Then, she chose her delivery method. Not a blog this time, though later on it helped fuel the hungry flames, but a direct, strategic leak to a renowned investigative journalism firm known for its tenacity and its unwavering willingness to take on powerful entities. She sent an anonymous encrypted email containing a link to a secure, temporary cloud server where the entire dossier was housed. She included a brief, chilling note. The Vance family's legacy is built on lies. It is time for the truth to be revealed. The public deserves to know who has been serving them. The fallout was immediate and cataclysmic. To Elise, it was bright and sensational. The journalists, sensing a story of monumental proportions, went to work with unbridled ferocity. Within weeks, the Vance name was plastered across headlines, not for their philanthropy or business acumen, but for widespread tax evasion, fraud, and money laundering. Stock prices plummeted, federal investigators launched probes, and the family's carefully cultivated reputation disintegrated into a public scandal. Elise watched the news unfold from the anonymous luxury of a hotel suite in a distant country, a quiet, profound satisfaction settling over her. She had shed her family, just as she had shed her fiancé. The chains were broken, the past incinerated. If she had watched the collapse in the theatre downstairs in her new mansion, she would throw on 3D glasses. In the ruins of their former empire, huddled in a sterile rented conference room far from the opulent halls they once commanded, Elise's family confronted her. Her father, his face etched with a mixture of rage and despair, spat out the words, "How could you? How could you do this to us? To the family name. We gave you everything." Her mother wept softly, clutching a handkerchief, tried the softer approach. "Elise, darling, why? What did we ever do to deserve this destruction?" Elise met their gazes, her expression devoid of remorse, her voice steady. "You gave me a cage," she stated, the words sharp and precise. "I built the key out of this rotten place." Her father lunged forward, restrained by his own wife and the big burly bodyguards, stopped of him with nice, encouraging whispers. He shrank back on his chair, a defeated shell of a man. Rot? That was our legacy, our life's work. Elise stood, walking towards the window, overlooking the city she now dominated. "And it's a legacy that deserves to be dismantled," she said, turning back to them. "In fact," she continued, a slow, chilling smile spreading across her face, "I've already taken care of the remnants. The remaining Vance Corp assets, what little is left after the legal settlements and investigations, have been irrevocably donated to charity." Oh, the headlines loved it. And the Davenports loved the Vance Mansion, they called it. Oh, what did they say? "It doesn't matter." A collective gasp filled the room. Her mother's tears stopped, replaced by a look of horror. Her father stood rigid, his face pale. "Donated? To charity? You've given away everything. There's nothing left." Elise simply shrugged, the gesture laced with utter finality. "Consider it your final contribution to society, a penance for the years of deceit. The Vance name will be remembered, father, but not for the wealth you hoarded. Think about the good this family's done in its last moments." Without another word, she and her bodyguards left the ashen-faced parents alone. Now, with her personal life in ruins, Serafina ostracized, her family facing ruin, Elise turned her untamed energy and newfound capital towards her career. The ambition that had been a smoldering ember for years now erupted into a wildfire, consuming everything in its path. She had left her previous job in the chaotic wake of her family's scandal, but Silas's $50 million provided her with an unprecedented launchpad. She didn't seek a promotion, she sought dominion. News quickly spread, and companies were either fleeing or tripping over themselves for a partnership. "Did you hear? That Vance girl has lost it." Trending tags like hashtag "Vance woke up today" and hashtag "Don't let Elisa catch you" trended. Memes that amused her while she tapped her manicured nails over an Italian purchase she had flown in overnight. She began making strategic investments, not just in traditional stocks and bonds, but in burgeoning tech companies and struggling enterprises where she saw potential for explosive growth, and more importantly, a chance to assert absolute control. Her approach was audacious, often bordering on predatory. She identified companies with weak leadership or outdated strategies and, leveraging her vast financial resources, either acquired them outright or orchestrated aggressive, often hostile, takeovers. Her decision-making was swift, decisive, and utterly devoid of sentimentality. If a division was underperforming, she didn't try to salvage it. She cut it loose, selling off assets for maximum profit, regardless of the impact on the employees. If a competitor stood in her way, she didn't negotiate. She sought to dismantle them, using her legal teams to exploit every loophole and her financial power to outmaneuver and bankrupt them. One particular board meeting became legendary. A subordinate, trembling, pleaded for mercy for a failing department. Elise simply looked at him, her expression unreadable. "The numbers don't lie," she stated, her voice cold and clear. "And neither do I. This division is a liability. It's out." Colleagues who had once dismissed her now feared her. Boardrooms that had once ignored her now listened with hushed, anxious respect. She scaled to the dizzying heights of her industry with a speed that astonished everyone, including herself. She built a personal empire, her name becoming synonymous with aggressive capitalism and unparalleled or almost terrifying success. Her morality was a relic of a past life, discarded like an ill-fitting shoe. Her focus was singular: growth, power, and the sheer, unadulterated thrill of winning. She reveled in the complexity, the strategy, and the stark reality of the business world, a world where the only currency that truly mattered was profit and performance. She was no longer a cog. She was the engine, the architect, the queen of her own made-for-herself domain. Months blurred into a year, then 2. The dust settled on the wreckage of Serafina and her family, leaving them as distant, almost mythical figures in Elise Vance's new opulent reality. Her career was a staggering triumph, her wealth astronomical, her freedom absolute. She lived in sprawling penthouses overlooking glittering cityscapes, commanded boardrooms with an iron will, and made decisions that impacted thousands, all while maintaining an aura of cool, almost glacial detachment. She had sold her morality, and in return she had gained everything she thought she ever wanted: power, wealth, and the unburdened ability to pursue her desires without the nagging, inconvenient voice of conscience. Yet, in the quiet, solitary moments, usually late at night, a different kind of reckoning sometimes flickered. Was this contentment, or was it merely the absence of discomfort, a vast, echoing void where her old self used to reside? The thrill of the chase, the sweetness of vengeance, the exhilaration of power. These were potent opiates, but they didn't quite fill the space left by empathy, connection, or a clear sense of right and wrong. She had become a creature of pure will, a testament to what happens when ambition is unleashed entirely from the constraints of ethics. She was wild, yes, unbound, certainly. That mysterious investor never contacted her again, nor did she make any effort to call him back. In her unbridled conquest, Elise Vance had achieved a terrifying, solitary pinnacle. She had won the game, but the cost was the very essence of what it meant to be human, leaving her to reign supreme in a kingdom built on ashes. A queen with no one to share her throne, only the echo of her own triumphant, wild roar. She looked up to the stars and smiled. There was one place she hadn't gone wild yet, it seemed.